Hello, Jack,
I am here.
said Descartes.
Yes.
Ah, you still drink coffee? Or have you ever drank coffee?
Oh, I used to love coffee and then I ended up going on decaf, but with the kidneys, it's contraindicated.
Okay. Yeah, I've been on and off. Back when I used to work at the ESL or TRW, man, I think I sometimes drank up to 4 cups a day. And then I found out that somebody told me, hey, caffeine's not good for you, so stay away from it. So since 2011 to about 2 or 3 years ago, I had no coffee. But then I said, um, let me just stick to 2 cups a day max. So I drink 1 cup of regular coffee, which is, I don't know if you know the flavor, but the donut shop. I like the donut shop coffee. And then my second cup is a mushroom coffee. So that's what I allow myself. And then rather than these artificial creamers or whatever, I get heavy whipping cream. I put a little bit of that in here. And
You don't
that
like your heart, do you?
I what?
You don't like your heart, do you?
Yeah, uh
You know, you could do wonders with your heart if you went vegan.
maybe we should talk about longevity today.
Well, so if you would go to nutritionfacts.org. It's run by an MD who became an MD because he watched his grandmother get rid of some very serious heart disease by going vegan.
I did try going vegan at one point when my daughter went vegan, and I couldn't keep it up for more than 6 months, personally.
Well, so I'm not vegan. I consider myself ovo-lacto vegetarian. I will allow some cheese,
And
I
eggs.
and one egg a day, not two, not three. And when I
See,
go
that I don't really understand. I did remember seeing a lot of stuff that was bad about eggs long time ago, but recently I thought all of that has gotten debunked.
Nope, it's still true. The big deal. Tell me this: what is your cholesterol? You got two measurements.
Yeah, it's borderline.
Borderline. Um, Eggs really contribute to cholesterol. However, the yolks in an egg have some compound that you can neutralize by sprinkling a, a few blueberries in the skillet when you fry the egg, and you fry the egg in uh, olive oil. And so that's my breakfast is already. So what I do is I go to Trader Joe's. You probably don't have a Trader Joe's anywhere near you,
Not
but
up here.
they have these frozen wild wild blueberries, and they're little tiny things. And so I put a fistful of those in the skillet and put the eggs in. I used to have fried potatoes and chopped bell peppers, but I have problems with too much calcium, so I switched to uh, basically whole grain brown rice and a little bit of quinoa. And I run those in a rice cooker so that I can put a scoop of that in the skillet with my bell peppers, a little bit of chopped pineapple, and a lot of red cabbage. and that's my ovo lacto vegan breakfast, and it's actually the main meal of the day.
Yeah, that all sounds pretty good. The quinoa is what I haven't gotten used to. I've seen some
Well,
really good things about quinoa, but I haven't.
so if you cook it in a rice cooker, it doesn't puff up or do anything weird, and you don't even know it's there.
So do you just put like a cup of rice in the rice cooker and then sprinkle in what, a quarter cup of quinoa or something like that?
A half a cup of quinoa, yeah, I
One
get
cup of rice and half a cup of quinoa?
correct,
Okay.
and I've gone as much as a whole cup of quinoa. It I don't see any difference, but I get the multicolored quinoa,
I have a
and
bag here that I haven't learned really how to use.
well, so you got a little rice cooker, I trust.
An Asian? Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, and so you use the little cup that comes with it, and you put and you don't do white rice. You got to go whole grain. And um, I prefer the Asian rices, the whole grain Asian rices.
Where do you
Uh,
get yours? You go to Trader Joe's and get that too?
Trader Joe's, yeah.
By the way, I go to Costco. They definitely have some nice packets, nice little flats of blueberries. I do get some of those, and I mix
Okay,
them up in a shake.
yeah, and I remember I had blueberries at your house, but you just drop
Mhm.
a I don't know, a very small fistful of blueberries in the skillet. Um,
Wait, a regular sized fist or Trump sized fist? Sorry, that
no, a
was
reg
the.
so the way it works for me is I start cooking the rice and veggies and the blueberries right away on a very low cooker.
Wait,
Low
so
heat.
you put the blueberries in the rice and quinoa?
No, you can. I used to do that, but now I kind of prefer to just have it right in the fucking egg because that's where it has to do its action.
Now, I assume you don't have to fry it up. You could just eat it with the egg, and it would still have the same effect, right?
Yes, it's
Yeah,
the same effect, but
yeah,
what I do since I use frozen blueberries is I thought let them thaw while the
yeah,
veggies are cooking,
yeah.
and the secret sauce is don't use high heat. Very slow cooking of the egg is the only way to cook it.
That's interesting. Because I make omelets, I use high heat for omelets.
Uh, I'm not sure I would.
Otherwise, it takes way too long.
Of course it takes way too long,
Yeah.
but um, you get a much better deal out of it in terms of the nutrients, blah, blah, blah.
So, did you already do that this morning, or do you do that
No,
after
I will
this
do that
this
after
session?
we're done.
After this and after Ward?
Huh?
After this session and after Ward's section?
Yes,
Yeah, because I know you usually have Ward after this first hour.
I do.
Hmm.
I'm checking I put my wife on Lyft this morning. She's going to the Ontario airport to fly up to the Bay Area to spend Christmas with her family.
Okay, okay.
Well, if I were to go to the Bay Area, it would mean that I would have to have my fluids shipped up to
Yeah,
her.
yeah. It's an operation when you
It,
travel, right?
yeah, the only times I do any long haul trips with her are to Hawaii. We've gone to the Bay Area where we were limited to just 4 days, and I can put 4 days of fluids in my Prius.
Hmm.
So that's that works fine.
Oh, so you're okay. But then you spend, I don't know, 12 hours driving of those 4 days, right?
Uh, well, it's 7 hours each way.
Okay,
so
the 14. Yeah.
14. But it's a very pleasant drive up the Central California Highway 5, and then cross over to the Bay Area and up 101 to her parents' house, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But, we used to go to Adam Chayer's birthday parties in San Francisco, and we did it that way. Adam Chayer would he would literally fund an entire floor of a hotel ballroom and musicians and magicians. Adam is a magician, and and cater the whole thing was fully catered, but you had to buy a ticket to get in, and what you were doing was making a contribution to a food bank.
Hmm.
And that's what he did. He did that for years, and I think he still does.
Nice.
Um,
Nice.
the last time, since Adam is big on basketball, he's very big on basketball. There were at the last party, there were three guys there that must have been 8 feet tall. They were they just stood above everybody.
Either basketball players or Anunnaki, right?
They were no, they were clearly basketball players, very lean and very, you know,
Yeah.
and very polite. It was something.
Mm. Yeah, but yeah, I do confess, I used to be healthier with my eating and my regular high habits. Right now, I notice that I have had a lapse. So I am conscious
Well,
of that.
if you want to deal with your heart, spend some time at at nutritionfacts.org and watch his movies and sign up for his newsletter. Every Sunday you'll get
Okay, yeah. And what I'll do also is I am leaving the country and then really getting much more natural foods from the food stands. That's what I want to do. And alter my life that way. By the way,
well,
did I tell you, Jack? The place across the street is 99% rented. We just have to work a few details out. So now I'm focusing on this house, trying to get this house ready for rent as well. So I think it'll take another month or two, and then I might be able to travel.
you're going to have to get storage for all of your stuff.
Correct. So I just yesterday, no, 2 days ago on the 5th, well, that was Friday, right? Took receipt of a 40-foot storage container and I put it on this property that you're looking at, the 5 acre
All right.
property. I hid it into the trees, the woods, and they managed to send me a green one, which was the best color they could have sent, even though they don't guarantee color selection. So I got a green one, and now I got to get a lock, and now I've got a whole garage full of stuff I have to move into that storage container, and then got to do some more packing. So it's definitely a step because I didn't want to pay $150 for a 10 by 10 storage unit somewhere,
No,
which I've been doing already
that
for 4 years. I got to
those
get
are
all
a
my stuff
ripoff.
out of there.
Right.
I finally discovered their business model, by the way. Their business model is they cater to families that are about ready to divorce, and one of the couple decides to pack up the other's possessions and puts them in a storage unit, and then the other, who may or may not be able to manage it or forgets about it or is on financial hardship, eventually loses it to a lien, and then they sell off the container. And that is a very effective business model, it turns out. That's what they do.
I had no idea.
Yes. I lost my previous content of a storage unit in California that way when my ex-wife, took my stuff and put it over there and said, I'm paying for N months of this, and then you got to pick it up. And then that date went, and I lost some very nice audio equipment, a bunch of books, and a bunch of memorabilia. So that happened.
So it wasn't a clean breakup, was it?
No, no. Even though right now we're amicable, the breakup was not.
Well, you have kids.
Yes.
Yeah, that's,
Well, they used to be kids.
well,
I know, I know, I know.
I still converse with my ex-wife, but
Yep,
that's because we have two kids.
yep. Yeah. In fact, we've been conversing pretty regularly because my youngest one is still in college. She'll be there for another, well, this quarter and next quarter, and then Veronica will graduate with a math degree, it turns out, and a minor in art. By the way, did I tell you what happened to me at a dinner I attended on Tuesday? Did I tell you about the Chinese couple I sat with? Did I mention that yesterday?
Not that I remember.
Uh, here's the funny
Kayla
part.
just shows up and I see something that looks like the ceiling of her house.
Oh, hey Kayla, I'm gonna have to. Whoa, what am I getting? A call is coming in. Let me get rid of this call.
And Kayla, why don't you put on your video?
What?
Why don't you turn on your video?
Because I don't want to.
Yeah,
Well,
she's mentioned that before, Jack.
that's just not being nice.
I don't care.
It's
Well,
people's choice, Jack. Isn't it people's
Yeah.
choice?
it's of course your choice, but I happen to really enjoy looking at you.
And that
Yeah.
happens to
Jack,
kind
Jack,
of
Jack, Jack,
trigger
Jack,
me
Jack.
in a way. You have
Don't
to
go down that
understand
path. Don't go
it's
down that path, Jack.
he's already opened that path. It's kind of like when a man will smile at you, or when I'm walking somewhere and a man says smile. Like I don't want to fucking smile. I don't want to turn on my video. I don't want to smile. I don't care about people looking at me. That's not my point for being here. So please excuse me. I will not turn on my video. When I turn on my video, I will turn on my video. If it's required, then I'll leave.
Well, I'm not just some man.
Well, you are a man and you're asking or you're saying something like that and you've repeated it before and it kind of pisses me off.
Well, I'm sorry, but I spent a lot of time in the Philippines and I just like Filipinos, that's all.
Jack. Let's. I I do think that there's a certain attitude that men have towards women regarding entitlement, which is hard to be aware of sometimes.
No, I'm actually very aware of it, but
But you still keep doing it. There's still this but in your rhetoric.
well, so I won't ever do it again. Did you put away your call, Sam?
I didn't get to it soon enough, so they just hung up. But I know who it was. Yeah. Mm. Can we do a reset? Actually, it's an important point. I don't necessarily want to do a reset, but I also don't want to piss anybody off. But it's an important issue because Jack, I consider you fairly, intelligent and enlightened, but there are still things that happen that reflect um, an attitude towards women that I think women are sensitive to, but men are not. And I think it happened a few months ago with Josh. I don't know if you were there. And I
No,
think
he
to
wasn't
this
there.
day, yeah, I think to this
Barry was
day,
there.
yeah, Barry was there. But to this day, I don't even think Josh has acknowledged it.
Well, I don't put myself anywhere near the same mental state as Josh.
And I would have to agree with that. But I get Sam's point. It's definitely different. But there are certain things that kind of like it just has to go away,
Yeah. Let me
you
try
know.
something else. Not that I would ever say this, but if I said something like, uh, and I'm gonna probably piss off Kayla when I say this, so I hope. But I'm just using this as an example, okay? But if I said something like, "Hey, Kayla, you look really good in a sundress. Will you wear a sundress today?" Wouldn't that be me saying to her, "Hey, I have a preference for how you show up in the world, and if you don't do that, then I'd be a little bit disappointed,"
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's not as egregious, Jack. It's just turning on a video. But I'm just trying to indicate an example that sort of is along the same point. And I'm sure I don't. I'm sure you were not intentional in trying to, do anything that would offend or slight. But that's the tricky part of this is that it's so subtle and it's so ingrained that society thinks that it's normal. And I think we could become somewhat more aware of this. That's just hopefully my contribution. And if I pissed off somebody, then I apologize.
No, I totally get what you're saying. And if I err in that direction, I'm very sympathetic to Kayla's concerns.
It kind of reminds me too of this. So some women won't get offended by that. And, that's a person's personal, where they're at, their personal journey with certain things. Like there's certain things that I don't get too offended at that most women would get offended. And I can't really think of an example of that right now, but it makes me wonder of other social, um, um, other things like the N word. I mean, that's pretty, obvious, but uh, there was a time, where I guess maybe that's a wrong example, something kind of close to that, where the intent for most people wasn't um there's no ill intent, and it just makes me wonder about like how far we've come along, because this issue of women, you know I know that it's a hot topic, and it's going to be a hot topic for a while until we change. And how do we do that? There's a lot of TikTok memes or videos kind of making fun of that. I think there was one where some guy was saying, "Hey, if if you come across a guy who says hi and smiles at you, ladies, you should just smile back and not make it awkward." And then somebody stitched that and started making fun of the fragility of a male's ego, using other males as an example to make fun, so it was a collaboration of making fun of that issue. But the underlying part of it was, why should we smile? Like, why am I supposed to smile at you? Like, am I existing for the male gaze? And that's something that I've had my entire life. I was telling Sam that in my family gatherings that my cousin had acknowledged I was probably one of the most beautiful Filipino women in Ventura County. And it's, I was actually very pretty. I knew my asset. I utilized it as best as I could. But at the same time, there was that level of harassment, that level of expectations. I got that like question all the time, smile. I even had a boss, tell me to turn around because I was wearing an outfit that he liked. And when I just went, you know what, screw it. And I left the workplace. And the guy called my dad, had the nerve to talk to my parents about it. And it was a shouting match between me and my parents. I was like 20 years old. I said, I did not want to fucking turn around with this guy. Like, what a creep. It has nothing to do with my job. And I had just seen a video that I posted in 2022, conversations with my dad. And I actually wanted to share it with some of you guys, but that'll be later. And my dad said, you had a lot of anger in your jobs. And I remember why I left some of my jobs. And that was one of the reasons why. And it still like just blew my mind that my dad didn't understand the level of harassment his own daughter had to endure because it was normalized.
Yeah.
And so like I just don't under like it how long is it going to take, you know, for it's so like this thing against women, it's so deeply in our society, all around the world. And in some other parts of the world, it's like worse. And it just makes me wonder, like, when is, are we ever going to get to that point where, like, women don't have to fear for their lives, much less be harassed or have these expectations about them? That's kind of annoying. Anyways, I'm complete.
May I follow up on that?
Go for it.
Although there are very many differences, the lack of first class sovereignty of women is similar to the lack of first class sovereignty for non-white people. And they are different, okay? And the people who have the power, who have instituted the customs and norms and practices that apparently are accepted as normal in this country, have been white men. And the what?
My people.
Not necessarily, well, yes, you are a white man, but you don't exhibit, those qualities that I'm really talking about. I mean, look, I think that we had
Yeah.
an incident, which I think is a very valuable opportunity for us as three, hopefully, mutually curious and people who like each other to lean in. And I think this is really good. Do you guys hear an alarm in the background? Should I turn it off? Because otherwise I want to finish what I'm saying and then go turn it off.
I don't hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I do believe that until the people in power see the injustice and see the imbalance and do something about it, it will take much, much longer for this issue to really get cleaned up. You can't say, oh, it's really up to Black people to fix the oppression of Black people. And it's really not up to women to fix the oppression of women. And it's not up to, let's say, Chinese Americans to fix the oppression of Chinese Americans in this particular country. They can work on it, they can fight for it, they can try and find allies for it, but ultimately, it's not going to change unless the people with the power, in the power, wake up and agree that it's an injustice and decide to institute different systems and different values and different practices. So that's why it's an important issue because the people in power are comfortable. They don't see anything wrong. They're quote unquote succeeding. But in the meantime, a lot of people can't succeed to the same extent. There's wage disparity. There's difference of where people can go and, be not accosted. Uh, Black people can't even walk down the street without being accosted, in many places. So it is an important thing. And until the people in power understand this issue, it's going to be very, very difficult for those who are oppressed to escape that oppression over, in
Yeah,
my
it's really
opinion.
strange, isn't it? Like, I just, it's real. It's really interesting. I'll draw from my personal experience. Really interesting. My friends who supported me through my grief with my dad, they were the ones who had actually lost their parents, and they showed up in a way that was like pretty extraordinary. But then the ones who hadn't yet lost their parents, like you could tell they couldn't understand and they could support me only to a point, to no fault of theirs whatsoever. Um, but I noticed in the friends who had never lost a parent and didn't know how to support me, some of them showed up in, equally extraordinary ways to assist, even though they couldn't really um, commiserate on an equal level. But they still showed up. And it just makes me like wonder, will it take like some type of like what type of wake up call is it going to take for other people, who have that privilege to realize like, hey, maybe I should change my outlook. Maybe I should do something to try to help. And in this instance here at the GCC, I mean, one glaring example of that was when Josh couldn't like fathom being called a white male, which he is a white male, and that intent that I had, in which I mentioned him to be a white male, there was no ill intent. And the fact that he just kind of went off on me, I felt like was it just kind of showed his privilege as a white male. Like, hey, you are a like the unfortunate epitome of the toxic white male as we speak. You're showing up in that way. Like, and to what Sam's point was, he hasn't even apologized or acknowledged or even showed up, to be honest, at any of these calls. And I doubt that he has any type of remorse, nor does he have like any inkling of how he has viewed how he now is seen through my eyes and perhaps eyes of others like Stacy.
I would say that the willingness or the ability to see the event through your eyes is one aspect of what I might characterize as empathy, right? Maybe it's not the exact right word, but some aspect of it requires some empathic uh,
And
ability.
emotional maturity.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely emotional maturity.
yeah.
That is a mature thing to be able to say, okay, I'm going to try to look at this through your eyes.
And by the way, Jack, to your previous point, yeah, right now in this country, it is about white males, waking up. But look, racism exists everywhere. And we were even talking yesterday about how there's a lot of racism even in Asian cultures. And so nobody is really innocent of all of this. I think everybody does need to wake up. And some of the more subtle aspects of racism, like, Asians to other Asians, most people in this country are not aware of. So the subtle stuff isn't even going to get addressed as quickly because it's just not quite so apparent. So I don't want to absolve any particular ethnicity of this. I think it's an issue that once we realize it in the first major case, then I think other cases of it will become much easier to understand and see. Were you here, Jack, yesterday when I mentioned it was Ali Wong who had this whole spiel about fancy Asians and jungle Asians?
No, I wasn't here.
Yeah. So she's
Oh,
got a whole spiel about it. And she's talking about racism, but she's working it into a comedic stand-up act where everybody gets the point, but everybody still sees the racism. I think she does it to an extent that does allow people to see it and wake up and not get super offended.
I have a question for you, Jack. How do you feel being outnumbered as the only white male in the room? What are your thoughts right now?
Um, I am exceedingly comfortable with Asians, even if I'm the only person. So I'm gonna share something that I don't share very often. I did in fact marry a Filipina. That was the reason that I I went to Luzon 5 times, and it was all part of the dating process, but it got down to hand carrying her through the U.S. Embassy uh, to assure them that I wasn't, I was a real person. I think it, I've been to Malaysia. I've been to the Philippines, and I've been to South Korea, and always very much enjoying the people and their culture, but not necessarily their food. I'm just not a foodie. You 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 sometimes eat things that I I would not eat, and that's just your people, not necessarily you.
Right.
Um, I adopted 2 Korean children, and that's the foundation on which I decided that I wanted to know Asian people better.
And for the record, that was all way before Tinder, any of these other social media apps, right? That was back when you actually had to really get serious to find out about cultures.
You had yeah you had I forgot which online dating app where I saw her and hey,
eHarmony?
Oh, there was one? Okay, interesting.
huh?
The
Sorry.
early ones were like Match.com, I think was one of the earliest. And
Well,
eHarmony, I think was there.
I was on Match.com for a while, and then I went on one or two others, and I actually think that the Filipina was on Plenty of Fish, POF.com. And that's in fact where I met my Chinese wife.
Hmm. Well, that's another whole theme. Another friend of mine whom I met in 1986 was stationed for 4 years as part of the US Navy in Japan.
Yep.
So he got to know the Japanese culture and sushi. And for many, many years, he would only date Japanese women. But for about the last 5 or 10, I forget exactly how many, his other has been a Chinese woman. But he's from North Carolina, interestingly. but has, to my knowledge, only ever dated one Caucasian woman. And I've known him now almost 39 years, almost 40 years. He was best man at my wedding.
Well, there are two kinds of Asians that you almost never see in the online dating. Japanese and South Koreans.
Depends on what site you go to.
Filipinos everywhere, Thai everywhere, Chinese everywhere.
Uh, I have to say, in a moment of reflection, that I appreciate that both of you were open enough to stick around and hear this conversation among ourselves. There's not many communities that would have. I can imagine communities where a woman hearing that would have left, or a man hearing the observation that I shared would have left. So I do appreciate that we were all three in this conversation to explore it a bit.
Yeah, I appreciate that too.
As it turns out, I'm in a I I was sponsored into uh, a particular Signal chat that is run by a facilitator. And I've been very nervous because I'm far enough on the spectrum that I'm sensitive to woke behavior. And this particular group is all about feelings. How did you feel? How did you open space? How did you do this? How did you do that? Which, which in a past life, to me, that was just as woke as it gets, and I can't go there. And yet I'm actually enjoying working with these people.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm going to share something that I observed about you. I met you, I think, in 2008, approximately. Maybe a little bit before, maybe a little bit after, but I think it was about 2008. And one of the very first things you said as you introduced yourself is, I'm on the spectrum.
I
My
am.
observation of you, Jack, is that you, I think, are more emotionally EQ than most people I know, for what it's worth.
Well,
And whether or not you are on the spectrum, you've managed to learn enough to actually deal with it. So I
well,
just want to observe that about
I
you.
had to learn about it as a child because I was everybody's punching bag. And I had to learn how do you not be everybody's punching bag? And that's you know, that's the story of my life. Now, I fundamentally, historically, I was just an asshole. A real asshole. I mean, I was married to my first wife for 30 years, and it was me that wrecked it. And it was partially due to the fact that I'm an asshole, but also made worse by the fact that I spent uh, several years on interferon before the divorce. Actually, no. I spent 9 years on interferon before the divorce. And interferon was used to get rid of leukemia. And interferon happens to be that small protein molecule that causes you to have what is known as the viral syndrome. It makes you want to puke. It makes you not hungry. It makes you want to sleep, but it also makes you really cranky as hell. And the deal was is that I found out that if I took Prozac, I could counter that. And
Another
that's
dangerous drug.
another dangerous drug. However, it allowed me to get free of the disease. Without
Yeah,
it, the anger would have kept the disease going. This is the critical thing people don't recognize. So what I learned, what I had to learn from that was that anger is central to people's ill health. What happened was Prozac stopped working, and that's when I got grumpy again. Except I was grumpy with a little bit more insight, but it wasn't enough insight to prevent a divorce from happening.
just out of curiosity, have you had these observations and shared them with your ex-wife?
Yeah, we've talked about it, but she remains happily unmarried, and I'm not going to push that one.
Yeah,
Um, but what I learned was that the divorce said, okay, you now have to take control of the anger. And so the fact is that uh, when I encounter people who really get on my case, which in fact was the problem with the Filipina, um, she had a terrible temper, and I just shut down. I didn't fight back, and that made her mad. So I finally had to call that one off.
and have you had these conversations with your kids?
Yeah, I wrote a long letter to my daughter right shortly after we were divorced, telling her all about this. She was still in high school, and my wife got mad at me and said, my ex-wife said, you told her too much. No, I didn't tell her too much. Kids need to know this stuff.
So if I take a step back, I think in the last month or two, in some of my social media posts, certainly on Facebook, but also on Reddit and elsewhere, I've been trying to be more directed towards men, and that men do need to be part of the solution.
I've seen a lot of men kind of joining forces and trying to be a part of the solution too. And it's nice. It really is.
That's good.
Yeah, we're seeing that. Um, Unfortunately, in this Signal group, it's all females except me. I was sponsored by an Australian professor, and
Female?
huh?
Female?
Female. Um, I've never actually met her physically, though she did travel to Quebec and meet Marc Antoine and so forth. But we we are engaged in sense making, social sense making. That's my game and it's her game. and she decided I ought to be in this group, and it apparently cost some amount of money. And she said she could afford it, and she wanted me in there. She thought I could contribute, and so I've worked really hard to find ways that I could live up to what she was expecting.
That sounds great.
That brings me to the idea of energy, male energy and female energy, and how, you know, we humans can and do possess both. And I think that the feminine and masculine energy are both very necessary, as is you know, just neutral energy too. Um, in my own growing, in my own career path, I realized that I might actually need the I might need male energy in my profession. And it's funny, Jack, how you were saying that, you know, there was one group where they're all about feelings, and that's pretty woke. There's two questions I had. The first one is irrelevant, but I wanted to throw it out there. It just makes me wonder what woke means to everybody. But two, I find myself as somebody who loves to into feelings and who enjoys the fact that this world and this society is finally recognizing the importance of feelings. Um, I'm realizing now that I'm kind of going in the opposite direction. I'm almost saying, okay, well, we've got our feelings, right? We're recognizing our feelings, but um, I believe that we're starting to weaponize feelings and
I,
use it as a way to make excuses and stop growth. And I feel like, um, healthy male energy, not toxic male energy, healthy male energy can, introduce logic and moving forward, you know, like because life is hard. It's never going to be awesome. It's never going to be happy, but you'll relatively have a great life if you can say, you know what, this is how I feel today. Tomorrow I may not feel that way, you know? So that's the part of the male energy that I would love because I feel like in my career at the moment in the organization that I'm with, there's too many feelings and it's ruling, and it's like preventing growth, but we need both.
I think, in my opinion, you nailed it. To me, woke is when the feelings start to be disruptive. And look, my history was that when we were told that you're no longer Miss or Mrs., you're now Ms. I got it. I got it. The women's movement was trying to take control of its identity, and I get that. But when they started asking me for my pronouns, I said, "Okay, we've gone too far." And I've been in a lot of meetings where it was the equivalent of "you hurt my feelings," and it was just totally disruptive to the meeting. I didn't see any way in any path to which what was uttered before was offensive. Not to me, not to anybody. I couldn't see it. But somebody in the room just you know, um, but I'm pretty far on this. I'm not as far as I know people on the spectrum who can't even look me in the face. I can look people in the face. I can get on stage and I can talk to an audience of 1,000 people and tell them about how wind power works and blah, blah, blah. And I can lecture in classes and I can look people in the face and I can talk to them. But when it comes time to a party, it's too many people. Too much information flow. And so I'm the guy standing over in a corner. That's the story of my life.
Is that it? Like extroverted introvert or introverted extrovert?
Well,
I get that way too.
I I'm just partially on the spectrum, and it's enough. I think I got it from my father because he was always the one that was in the corner, and he just didn't do stuff. And the way I learned about this was I met a cousin at a party when I was in college, and he had a jug of wine and he offered it to me, and I said no thanks. And he says, "You're just like your dad." I had to think about that. Um,
Have you refused wine?
um, I wasn't going to drink from a gallon jug of wine that he was drinking from.
Oh,
No, I, there were times in college when I would get truly polluted, but I'd always wake up the next day and feel like, what an asshole. Why did you do that? I picked up my son one day to drive to he was in San Francisco and we were going to drive up to Sonoma State to visit his sister. Um, and he was really hungover. And he said, "Dad," he said, "how do you deal with a hangover?" And I said, "I learned not to. It was a difficult choice, but I learned not to get so polluted, and I learned the hard way." And so then what I did is I I pulled into a 7-Eleven and got him some Alka-Seltzer and had him drink that, and he was a lot better by the time we got to the college. But on those trips, I used to let him drive. It was a little country road off the freeway up to Sonoma State, and I would always let him drive, even though he didn't have a learner's permit or anything. I just, I'm the dad that put the kids on my lap and let them steer the car. You know what I mean?
yeah. Can I go back to something that you just kind of planted in my brain? um, I get it with like parties and stuff. I'm the kind of person that can also talk in front of thousands of people. I can dance in front of thousands of people with, ori tahiti with very little on, doing very sensual movements. But put me in a party and I will intentionally go to that party right when it starts so that I could leave early because I don't want to be there when everybody's drinking or drunk or there's
Right.
too many people and there's like a
Right.
million conversations you have to follow. The energy is like, ah, some people love that, but I don't. Um, so now going back to the dancing in front of thousands of people, if you were to take an objective look and you don't have any idea what ori tahiti is, it does look like a woman is like, shaking her ass half naked. And so,
Somewhat,
um,
yes.
from a cultural standpoint, it's quite offensive to know that you're going out there and you're exposing yourself to majority of people who do have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
But there is that element of education, that possibility of education that I enjoy. So I do enjoy putting my femininity out there. I do enjoy people receiving it as, they would receive it because it's a stab in the dark. Who are you going to see? How will people react is like something that's out of my control. But I do not like receiving that toxic energy, whether it's a toxic male energy or somebody wildly jealous or religious or something that thinks that's inappropriate. And I think there's that difference in energy that the ones that are willing to see like that was actually really beautiful, does it have any meaning? Then there's that healthy exchange, right? That has neither male nor female energy. It's just that attached, you know, um, curiosity. But where am I getting at with this? But like, you know, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember where I'm having a bimbo moment. But all I wanted to say is that just sparked something in my brain when it comes to like, types of energy that we emit and receive. Anyway, if I figure out what my point was, I'll let you guys know.
Okay, and on that note, it is time for me to leave. Um, Sorry I have to leave. This was getting good.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks for
Yeah,
staying. I
thanks.
really appreciate it.
Yep.
So, Kayla, on that last point, was it
On.
that you put yourself out there, and in a sense, it's a level of vulnerability because, like you say, you don't know how people are going to respond necessarily, especially in a group of 1,000 people. You're going to get the entire
Yes,
spectrum.
I think that's it. Just like there are women such as myself who don't mind that sensual energy. Who don't mind saying like, "Here, I'm going to put out my sensuality to you." But oh yeah, that's what it was. When it's received with violence or entitlement, or it like received as oh, this is something that I've entitled to
Yeah,
you. That's what needs to change.
yeah,
That is what needs to change, because and it sucks because it takes out the joy from everything. Even if somebody, if a guy like says, "Oh my gosh, that was so hot," blah 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 blah, you know yeah, okay, thanks, that's something that I would expect, right? But if they keep pursuing it, get violent towards it, and say, "Well, you're the one who did that, so you gave me the wrong impression," that's what needs to change. That's what needs to stop, because that is the wrong way about doing it. Even animals, okay, like they will stop. They have that neutral instinctive nature going, okay, this person wants me to stop. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to hump that dog or whatever. Um, and it's strange that humans can't seem to get that. Hello.
so I'm
Oh,
thinking, I'm thinking
I don't know if my
there's a
AirPods came
number
off.
of there's a number of ways to go with this conversation because I could delude myself and say, well, we as humans have created all these complex social structures that kind of replace the natural instincts that one might have. Some of them good, some of them not good. And it creates a level of unthinking when you just sort of say, okay, I'm just going to do what everybody else does.
Yeah.
So being receptive to being, in a sense, called out, but that's a little bit too strong. But, when someone points out a behavior which may have unintended consequences, or at least unintended by the person who did it, if that person is open to hearing it and considering it seriously, I think we've moved a small step forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just doesn't happen often enough. And I'm guilty of the same. Okay. I'm not going to say I'm not that way. I am guilty of the same. So the way I'm actually, in a sense, glad that we had this conversation because I'm sure it could have been done better, but we were able to point out a behavior which had that unintended consequence. I don't know if you remember. I was trying to tell Jack, hey Jack, don't go there, don't go there, don't do this, don't do
Yeah,
this.
yeah. I am all like, hell no, I need to say this.
But I think
One
Jack
too many
was
times.
he was not angry when I said that, and he was open to
Yeah,
hearing it, and I think
yeah,
that's to be commended, and I think it's to be commended
exactly.
that you didn't immediately leave, in a huff when that happened, because I
I
know that
wanted
in other
to.
GCC conversations, other people have done the same thing. I don't need to name names. Maybe, maybe I do, but I do know there are other people who have said, "Hey, Kayla, I like looking at you, or put your video on, or nice dress, or
Jazz
whatever it is."
Winder.
Okay, you can name them, definitely.
I do not have a problem calling people out.
Go down your list. Right now is the opportunity.
Yeah.
No, but I
And
think
I don't
that.
know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I don't know what the difference between Jazz Winder saying that and Jack saying that. I think with Jazz Winder, I kind of expected that from him because is he's kind of a pervert and he knows it. And but Jack, number one, I think it kind of irks me about the whole Filipino thing, but now I understand. Like, I'm glad he shared his story. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense now. It's not going to offend me as much. Um, but I think also because he's smart. Like, come on, Jack, why would you say that? And it did help that he explained that he was on the spectrum. You've told me that before. But I don't think he's ever said it out loud, at least or here in these meetings, at least when I've been there. So I
Mhm.
appreciated that.
Well, I do see a difference between the two, at least to me. Jack doesn't profess to be the know-it-all who wants to tell you how to live your life, whereas I definitely got that vibe from Jaswinder.
I'm sorry. That's awesome.
Are you laughing?
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Hey, I'm laughing because you're not wrong.
I definitely got that vibe from Jaswinder. And just for the record, also the friend that he brought along, Joel Paris,
Oh, yeah.
definitely got that
Oh,
very
yeah.
strongly from both of them.
Yeah, I still can't understand Joel.
Oh, Joel is still trolling me, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I know.
I think this
You
last
live.
week in one of, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go for it.
You're about to say I live rent free in his head.
Yes, you do.
I posted something, and you know me, I'm pretty regular posting, anti-Christian, anti-religious, memes. And he seemed to point out that I was being hypocritical in doing so. Uh, so I didn't respond to him at all.
Hmm. Not worth it.
Yeah. But I do think these are conversations which are hard to see happening in many other places in society.
Yeah. I have to say I almost left, but
I can see why.
I stayed because I have to get over being uncomfortable. And number two, I also have to be an example that you can hopefully, in which, it did happen where you just can kind of get over it and make it a positive thing.
I'm hoping that each of the three of us is a bit more insightful as a result of this conversation.
Yeah.
I think that is a good example of what we're trying to achieve here.
Agreed.
I think if I had let it go, I would have disappointed myself and you.
Totally.
I have to admit, some of my recent awareness, for the last several years, a lot of it has come from Gail because she is very sensitive to women's issues. But recently, just in the last 2, 3 weeks, it's also come from reading Virginia Giuffre's book, Nobody's Girl.
Yeah.
I just finished it yesterday. Man, that woman has had a sad, hard life.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad
And
that
the
she,
sense,
oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
just to
Go ahead.
finish, I was just saying the sense of entitlement that she describes in the men who abuse her needs to be understood by men.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm glad she turned that around by writing a book, but I'm sad that she committed suicide, you know?
Do you really think she committed suicide?
Or, not.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
haven't really like looked into it as much to form an opinion, to be honest, but that's what the news said.
yeah, the book is actually undecided about that point because she is at one point very explicit in the book that said, hey, if anybody ever claims I committed suicide, know now that I am not suicidal. I will never commit suicide, etc., etc., etc.
Wow.
But, and by the way, I remember in the media when she actually said that. I do remember that moment. But also in the book later, and I don't know if this was added by somebody else after she died. I really don't know. But if she actually wrote it, there was another incident where she actually describes she felt suicidal.
Mm.
Now, the book is published after her death. So it could have been edited by anyone.
I wonder if it
Okay.
was edited in such a way to get it out.
Yes. So that's what I'm wondering myself. Because I do remember real time when she said, hey, I'm not suicidal. I'm not going to kill myself. I will never kill myself. If I ever die, just know I did not kill myself. And she's dead
Yeah,
in Australia. So the reach of the powerful is all over the world.
of course.
There was one time that she describes getting a call in Australia. She got a call from the FBI saying that they had been tipped off that there was a credible threat to her life. And she and her husband and her kids packed up an RV and just got out of Dodge.
Wow.
So the FBI knows that there are credible tips that threaten her life. And that's what leads me to believe she didn't commit suicide, even though the book describes an episode where she did that. And I do think it's very telling. Had the book been published while she was alive, I would have no issue with it. But the book got published when she was dead. And that's the reason for questioning it myself.
Right.
Yeah. So she described a number of other women. I think she describes, I forget whether the number was 200 or 2000, but even 200 is too low. She knew that the number of victims of Epstein was 2000. It might have been 200, like I said, but I actually think for the amount of time that Epstein operated is probably closer to 2000. That was her estimate. And there's dozens of people who've already settled with Trump just to stay silent. Can you hear that?
No, I'm listening to you.
So the Trump numbered in the dozens suggests to me that Epstein's numbers were probably closer to 2,000 than 200. If I go back to the book, I could probably find it. I just don't remember. It was
Yeah,
two with two or three zeros.
that's so sad. It's so, you know, unfortunately, I've read and um, not had a personal experience with myself, but with other people that I know, other women that I know have, been sexually assaulted. Well, raped. I have been sexually assaulted, but raped. And it still makes me so sad and just disgusted. It's a feeling, it's complete violation, 100%. And to know that one man caused that many women, that total violation is just disgusting to me.
And you know
And what's
what?
even more disgusting is how we still have to prove it. Nobody, now people are sort of kind of listening, but how long did it take? How many victims
Yeah,
did it take? And
yeah.
it's still to this day, I think how many hours does it take to go through the rape kit? That's what astounds me.
Yeah, and how many thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of rape kits have not yet even been analyzed?
Yeah.
It's not just one guy.
Yeah.
There's enough evidence, and in my mind, it's credible, the claim that he was definitely operated by Mossad, Israeli intelligence.
Mm,
So it was a systematic program to collect dirt so that, you could bribe powerful people.
right.
And it was so effective that right now we still don't even know the extent of the reach of these people.
Yeah.
I sure hope that Anonymous gets their hands on everything eventually. They may have it now. I hope they just release it.
Just do it. Go see.
Exactly. I think somebody at the FBI probably has the unredacted originals.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope they're not sitting on it just to get a good book deal or to get
Right.
paid.
Right. Absolutely.
But man, even when Bill Gates' name popped up, and shortly thereafter, Melinda French Gates divorced him, I said, man, this guy's reach was extensive. And a very famous AI researcher from, I think, MIT, Marvin Minsky. Sad to hear on my part, but then, still very wrong. He was trapped. He was one of the people that Virginia Giuffre was forced to have sex with at least two or three times. And he was 70 years old and she was what, 17? I don't know.
Ew.
Some huge age disparity like that. And she's not the only one. She mentions knowing, other girls 12, 13, 14, treated the same way. And then she feels bad herself that she was used by Epstein to recruit other girls for
Yeah.
Epstein. She admits feeling, bad about having done that herself. In the book, she says that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just finished it yesterday. It's kind of a hard slog. I got it probably over a month ago, and I couldn't go through it just
Yeah.
all the way through.
Yeah. I would skip through all the rape parts. I haven't looked at it yet. It's so sad.
She doesn't get super graphic about it, obviously, but she does mention, certain specific times that stuck in her head, places, obviously. Um, and she makes a statement that, you know, when asked to identify these people and people question whether or not she actually got the person right, she was emphatic that, hey, when somebody's face is inches from yours violating you, you don't forget that face.
Right?
And why do some people question that? So it may be, the recency of that book that just highlights to me that this issue is still underreported, underappreciated, swept under the rug.
Yeah. Hey, Sam.
Yeah,
I have to use the bathroom.
please do. In fact, when I asked you earlier whether you could hear it, it was me tinkling.
Oh.
Did you really not
Well,
hear it?
well, I gotta go. Um,
Wait a minute, come
but
on.
yeah,
I'm not going to be able to hear it.
I'm gonna. I'm gonna have performance failure if I don't get off. I don't want to have stuck shit. Okay. No
Okay.
constipation for me.
All
So
right. All right.
hey, if it's a fast and furious, then I'll come back on. If it takes some time, then I'll talk to you
All
later.
right. I'll stay on for 10 or 15 minutes, but we'll see. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Okay,
Enjoy.
bye.
Have a good,
Poop.
um,
I will.
what is the name for something like that? Have a good elimination.
Exactly.
Have a good defecation
Exactly. Okay, bye.
later.